Thank you, Mr. President. I'll speak a few minutes on a business before the Senate here. Apparently, Senate Resolution 504 will be taken up in about an hour or so, and this resolution basically requires the Secretary of State to submit a report to the Foreign Relations Committee of the House and Senate regarding human rights practices and violations against the State of Israel regarding their operations in Gaza. I can only imagine how this is playing in the Mideast. I can only imagine the joy that terrorist groups throughout the world have that we're even talking about such a proposal. The question, I think, for this body, certainly for me, is what was October the 7th? Was it just a continuation of a tit-for-tat between Israel and Hamas? Or was it an effort by Hamas, a terrorist organization under United States law, an effort to kill innocent civilians in Israel at a rate we haven't seen since the Holocaust? I just got back. I would urge everybody in the body to go over there and take some time to visit the kibbutzes in question, where Hamas came en masse, took over kibbutzes, cut the heads of children off, slaughtered people in front of the parents and their children, committed atrocities on par with the Nazis, if not beyond, and recorded them for posterity. So the response is the United States Senate is going to ask for a report about how Israel is conducting military operations. Wow. Again, to the terrorists who are emboldened maybe by this discussion, this is going to go down in flames. The Senate's going to reject this big time. And here's why. I think most people, at least on my side, see October the 7th as Pearl Harbor on steroids. What would happen after Pearl Harbor? Some senator or congressman did something like this to America. Did anybody in America believe that the response after Pearl Harbor was anything but total war? The Japanese Empire and the Nazi Germany were in league with Mussolini in Italy to destroy the world as we know it. A surprise attack against our forces on Pearl Harbor, December the 7th, 1941, awakened this country, and we embarked on a noble crusade, I think, as General Eisenhower, eventually President Eisenhower, described in destroying the Nazi regime in Imperial Japan. Nobody during those times would have suggested anything like this, because the only way you could destroy these regimes is to destroy the infrastructure around the regimes. The problem I have with this, not only does it empower the terrorist, is it the most tone-deaf thing, and maybe in the history of the Senate, is that it ignores the fact that Hamas has tunnels under hospitals, under schools. They use civilians as human shields. They routinely violate the law of war, and there's nothing in here about that. So all I can say is that the Senate will reject this idea. And to the left, what are you thinking? To the people who go in and try to interrupt cancer treatments in New York at a cancer hospital, what are you thinking? A ceasefire with Hamas only allows Hamas to regroup. Do you not see Hamas for who it is? It's a terrorist organization. They're religious Nazis. They're not taking up the cause of the Palestinian people. They're abusing the Palestinian people probably greater than anybody. Hamas spokesperson said a few weeks ago, there'll be another October 7th, another October 7th, and another October 7th. Probably the biggest mistake Israel made was withdraw from Gaza, because when they did, Hamas took over. To the Palestinians who want to live in peace with Israel, Hamas throws them off the roofs of buildings in Gaza. So we're dealing with the most barbaric organizations in the history of the world who are bent on destroying the Jewish people, who are calling for attacks on the United States, and we have a resolution in front of us asking the Secretary of State to investigate the government of Israel for war crimes. You talk about upside down and backwards. Just having been back from Israel, I can assure you the IDF is spending more time trying to protect innocent Palestinians than Hamas. What's odd about this whole thing is that Hamas is doing everything they can to expose civilians to military action, and Israel is trying, I think, in a reasonable way to lessen the exposure. What do you call a group of people that build tunnels under hospitals and have command infrastructure under a hospital? You call them bloodthirsty terrorists who are trying to prey on the rules that exist under the law of war. By being under the hospital and the schoolhouse and firing rockets from apartment buildings, they have militarized these locations. So here's what I would tell our friends in Israel. This effort to have you investigated will fail in the United States Senate. Keep doing what you need to do to make sure there's no more October 7s. Make sure that Hamas, as we know, it's destroyed. Do the best you can to protect civilians who are in harm's way. A little bit about Gaza. From the time you're born, you're taught to kill the Jews. The most radicalized population on the planet, I would say, is in Gaza, and a close second would be the West Bank. When Germany and Japan were destroyed by military force, it took a generation to change the culture. So the Prime Minister of Israel says his goal is to demilitarize and de-radicalize. Well, the way you demilitarize, you destroy Hamas as a military power. They have, I think, about 24 brigades. If we end this conflict with their military capabilities still standing, we'll have made a huge mistake. The idea of anything but unconditional surrender in World War II was laughable. We used 2 nuclear bombs, and that's what it was required to get Japan to surrender. So when you look back in history, the invasion of Japan that was being planned could have resulted in up to 1 million casualties of American forces. We brought that war to conclusion by using 2 atomic bombs that eventually allowed unconditional surrender. Anything less than unconditional surrender in World War II would have been a mistake. Anything short of destroying Hamas militarily would be a mistake for the ages. If Hamas is still standing militarily after this attack of October the 7th, we will all pay a heavy price. The world is watching. To the world, if you see Israel as the bad guy here, you're missing a lot. There is no moral equivalency in play. Hamas goes out of its way to make sure civilians are killed in large numbers. That's part of their strategy, is to require Israel to use military force in a way to heighten the likelihood of death by integrating their military infrastructure with civilian infrastructure. So we'll have a vote here soon. This resolution will fail, but the idea behind this resolution is scary to me. You need to go to Israel and get briefed about what happened on October the 7th. What happened to the women, what happened to the children, what's happening to the hostages. If you go and have that briefing, and you believe that the only response, and if you believe anything less than total war to destroy Hamas is required, I'd be surprised. What would we do if this happened to us? What would we do to any terrorist group or government that brought about such atrocities against the American people? We would hunt them down. We would make sure they could never do this to us again. That's exactly what Israel has to do. It will be a long time before the populations of Gaza and the West Bank are going to be capable, I believe, of living in true peace with Israel. Because if you've been taught from the time you're born all through your life to hate somebody, to learn math by the following: if you had 10 Jews and you killed 6, how many would you have left? It's going to be a tall order to change that population. But here's the good news. We've seen from Germany and Japan it can change. It's going to take a lot of effort. I am willing to help the people in the West Bank and Gaza once Hamas has been destroyed. I am hopeful we can do a deal between Saudi Arabia and Israel, normalizing and effectively putting an end to the Arab-Israeli conflict. I believe Iran is the root of all evil here, and this attack was partly due to stop the normalization efforts between Saudi Arabia and Israel, which I've been supporting the efforts of the Biden administration, and I want to publicly thank them for continuing to push. I will do all I can as a Republican to help President Biden bring about normalization between Saudi Arabia and Israel. That would isolate Iran. It would effectively end the Arab-Israeli conflict, and one of the benefits of that deal would be to give the Palestinian people a better future. But this resolution is not only off base, it's dangerous. It's doing harm. It sends absolutely the wrong signal at the wrong time. So to the people who believe this is a good idea for the United States to launch an investigation of Israel as a potential war criminal after October the 7th, you have learned very little from history. The proper response by Israel is to destroy Hamas. The problem Israel has in that task is Hamas is trying to make sure Israel kills as many innocent people as possible. Therein lies our dilemma. So this is a horribly bad idea. And to the American people, put yourself in the shoes of Israel. An attack, barbaric in nature, that's designed to destroy you. Hamas's goal is not to liberate the Palestinian people, it's to kill the Jews. Hamas's goal is not to bring a better life for the Palestinian people, but destroy the lives of the Jewish people. They are religious Nazis. If you don't believe me, listen to them. They will not hide their agenda. They celebrate it. The SS tried to hide their war crimes. They tried to rebury bodies and destroy the concentration camps, but they were unable to hide their crimes. Hamas filmed their crimes. They want you to see what they were willing to do to babies and to women. And the question for the world is, what is the right response? The right response, ladies and gentlemen, is when you see evil, confront it. When you deal with people who are willing to destroy children, rape daughters in front of the mother and father, you need to destroy them. So not only will this resolution fail, I believe the United States Senate will ensure that Israel has the latitude it needs to destroy not only an enemy of the Israeli people, Hamas, but the enemy of mankind itself.